Going live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crossroads of Cognizance. Welcome back. It's Thursday again. And so we are here to share time with you, share space, discuss different topics. And today is an interesting one because although it is spooky season, we're covering a topic today that both Katrina and I don't like. Interestingly enough, but we are fair discussers here on Crossroads of Cognizance. So it's not always the stuff that we know, the stuff that we are well versed in, or even as today is it's not always the stuff that we enjoy.
Well,
So
and also we can be a more fair critic of what we're discussing because we're looking at it from the outside rather than those who are in love with that particular topic might be a little jaded.
oh, see, and I didn't even think about it that way. So there you have it. But before we get eyeball deep into that, we are two people that may be unfamiliar to you if you are viewing this for the first time. So we have some introductions to make. Over here, I am Delia Rose. I am the founder of the Conduit School. I serve my community as a healer, a teacher, and a conduit for high vibrational energies, which is just a fancy way of saying I allow energy to move through me to support the people that I know and love, and some that I don't know through their healing journey. And from there, I really it's a hodgepodge of of healing techniques that I take very seriously. And sometimes, as today went, it was just a series of laughter because that's all you can do to keep from crying. So, but I'm not on the show alone.
My name's Katrina Raspold. I am a professional witch. I've been a witch for a little over 40 years. I'm also a tarotologist and I do readings, cleansings, and magical work for people by remote. I no longer practice with people in person. I'm also a co-owner of Crossroads Occult, which is a an online store that features homemade magical products my husband and I make, and I am the author of 42 books on a variety of subjects, the majority of which are metaphysical in nature. That's me.
Sorry, doing double duty here. so, um, so let's get right down to business. The topic at hand. Uh, Scary movies. Katrina had this wonderful suggestion last week of doing this topic, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Let me brush up because I don't like scary movies at all. Like I don't enjoy them. I don't like jump scares. I happen to find people that love me that like jump scares and move when the scare happens. I just don't. I like scary. The only time I like scary movies is when they're on mute, and then I can make it through different moments, um, or have my loops in, which are ear saving devices. But anyway,
No,
so we have
no,
scary
go ahead.
movies as our topic. What'd you say?
Oh no, I thought you were done. So I was jumping. I was
No,
I was picking up the gauntlet. Go ahead.
go for it.
No, I was just going to say I'm in a similar position, and it's really a very kind of psychological approach because it has been proven on multiple studies and multiple occasions that when somebody witnesses an event happening, that they go through the same physiological reactions as if they were experiencing it themselves. And I just don't care to subject myself to that. My husband loves horror films. My son is the magus of horror films. He knows everything about all of them and absolutely loves them. And it's just not something I love, certainly not something I seek out. However, I was able to come up with 10 favorites that I feel I can genuinely say I really liked these movies. And that's very rare for me. Now, next week we had talked about doing TV shows or TV series. And that's a whole other thing. And I'm excited to delve into that as well. Now, I did have criteria for this because, it's a very wide field or wide field. First of all, I told myself I wasn't going to engage anything that was psychological horror. So films that I love, like Jacob's Ladder, is more about psychological horror than paranormal horror.
Mm,
It does encounter themes like the fear of death and that sort of thing, but no psychological horror. So that kind of took some things off the field. Then I said no fantastical creatures. So I'm not doing in my list, I'm not doing vampires, I'm not doing werewolves, I'm not doing zombies. It has to be human experience of horror that could realistically, in theory, happen.
okay.
I also took off any slasher or shock horror movies because that doesn't impress me. Impress me with the story and the acting. Don't impress me with somebody's arm getting cut off or Freddy jumps out of the bathtub or whatever it might be. I want to be intellectually terrified if I'm watching a show. And the last criteria that was actually the hardest was I had to actually like the movie. There are a lot of movies I've seen that I respect the fact that this is a really good horror movie. One of them that I would mention, yeah, I ruled those out. Bram, I absolutely did because it wasn't in my criteria. Um, and
Midsommar was such a fucked up movie.
so it had to be, like I said, a spooky movie is really what we were going for, to my understanding. And there are movies like an example is The Changeling with George C. Scott. That is a really spooky movie. I didn't think it was a particularly good movie. And so
Mm.
that kind of disqualified that one there. So those were my criteria as I moved into my 10. I think we might. It'd be interesting if we didn't have any overlap because we've not compared our list.
We have not. And now that you've gone through your criteria, I'm like, okay, well, maybe. I did not have criteria. There are some things that I just absolutely refuse to watch. And it is, I don't need anything else outside of that. And when I thought, I will say, I just said I didn't have criteria. And I thought to look for scary movies that maybe pertain to our field of work,
Mhm.
either in a direct or an indirect way, just so that there was something for me, for my brain to like analyze as possible, as you were saying, without getting deep into the weeds of, oh my God, I feel this, I feel that, I'm startled. And I literally, maybe like 45 minutes before the show, I just finished The Nun. And I watched most of it on mute. so um so yeah, that is on my list, just to say, just as an example of like the criteria slash lack of criteria on my end of things. Yeah, I didn't Midsummer was weird. The main issue is that there are four different Sabbaths. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that. I just was paying attention to like all the rituals that went sideways. I mean, they didn't go sideways for the movie anyway. Midsummer, go check it out and be weirded out thoroughly. Um,
Fran mentions the blood eagle. That is specifically a Viking practice, as I understand it. Um, so that's as far back as I've traced it. And Debs, I can guarantee you that Bram is talking about the Wicker Man with Christopher Lee because Bram has a fanatical affection for Howie, who's one of the main characters. So I happen to know for a fact that's one that they're talking about. Hi, Bob.
I thought, um,
So you ready?
oh yeah, you go first.
Okay. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm starting with my number one. Okay. Because it's the one that could come first to my head because I really love this movie. And it's rare that I find a scary movie that just really turns me on, that I just really liked. And this one, all the way through the movie, I went, this is such a bullshit movie. This is the most boring movie I've ever seen in my life. I can't stand this movie. This is so stupid. And then during the last 10 minutes, if that, of the movie, I was saying, this is the most amazing movie I've ever seen in my life. And it's The Others with Nicole Kidman. I absolutely love that movie. And it was just the creepiest movie ever. And all the way through it, you're getting a creep vibe, but it also is like, where's this movie going? I don't get. And in the last 10 minutes, oh my gosh, do you ever get? And I just loved it. So my first vote is The Others.
I forgot about that movie. It was stellar, as far as those kinds of movies are concerned, where they kind of hide the truth from you till the end. It was well done. Well done. So mine are not in favorite order.
Mine
I
aren't
missed that
either.
part. Okay.
No.
So one I actually really enjoyed recently was The Pope's Exorcist, with Gerard Butler. Did you see that one?
I know it exists, and I
Okay.
saw the promo for the movie. I've not seen the movie.
It was, how do I describe it? It was true to how exorcisms can go. I appreciated the standing up for what you believe in versus what maybe the church wants you to do. I appreciate everything about Gerard Butler, no matter what he looks like, because
Sure.
he's a stellar actor. And I, you know, the complexity of it, the introduction to the possibility of multiple possessions at one time. I'd seen that twice this year, in the other Exorcist movie that's in theaters, I think. Don't go see that one. The Exorcist Believer. It is on my list, but it's kind of garbage. So The Pope's Exorcist is the one to go see, just in the way that it didn't seem so theatrical the way that some movies are. They made references to Latin being a powerful way to move energy and move demonic spirits and things like that. And it was overall you knew where the film was going, but it was an enjoyable experience as you rode in the car with the movie. So that's what I have to say about that. The Pope's Exorcist on my list.
And I'm excited that if you like a movie, there's a chance I will too. So that's a lot of fun. Yes, on the right, Debs. I did like that movie very much. Yeah, that was good. So I noticed as you were talking a theme to my list, and that is that 8 of my 10 movies are haunted house movies.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the next one is the consummate. Well, the next two I will go. The next two are the consummate haunted house movies, and the first one is just Poltergeist.
Oh, of course.
Of course.
It wasn't on my list, though.
How do you not include Poltergeist in this list? It reformed the image of the haunted house, and I just I liked the sequels, but there's just so many canon, just really classic things about that movie that I couldn't even really get started on all of it. But I would say that Poltergeist is it's a winner. I'm pretty happy with that movie. Jo Beth Williams is one of my favorite actors anyway, and I love Craig T. Nelson. And they just made the perfect what the hell did we just buy kind of person. I love how Jo Beth Williams was kind of excited about it at first. And then, that went south very quickly. But yeah, I did like Poltergeist. That's my touch on that one.
As a teen, I thought the movie was stupid. As an adult, I had more appreciation, and then as like getting into energy work, I was like, oh, so what else is on here? Okay, this one is interesting. I don't know if many people have seen it, The Babadook.
I saw that referenced a lot because what I did, because I had 5 and I had to get, I was like the top 100 horror films, and that was on almost every list.
Yes, I can't even tell you why. It was hard to it was a little hard to follow at first. Like you it opens up and the movie starts to play on and you're kind of like, what the hell am I watching? Like what is actually happening? And then I don't want to ruin it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but just the way that it ends, it's you couldn't guess that that's how this particular horror movie is going to end. And now it's become a favorite because it was kind of a quirky scary movie. You know, it's like the aunt you invite to dinner who is going to just say the most off the wall wild thing you can think of and then leave like it never happened. That's the Babadook in
That's
terms of scary
awesome.
movies.
I love it.
So that was on my list.
So my next one is the other consummate like haunted house movie, and that's the original Amityville Horror with James Brolin and Margot Kidder. And there was so much that was camp about that movie. And I actually not only read the book by Ansel Adams, but I read the book about the making of the movie. And I read a book by some guy that knew George Lutz, who said that they had made it all up. And I don't have an opinion on whether it was real or not. But it was really, I think, just the spooky movie. I enjoyed it completely. There was something about James Brolin chopping that wood that really kind of stirred me up a little bit. And then he got really creepy with chopping the wood. And I don't know, I loved it. And that house that looked like a barn, I thought was terrifying. So that's mine is Amityville Horror.
Okay, so I haven't seen that one. Maybe
It's a
something to go back and
dumb
watch.
movie. It's
It's a
kind of like if Poltergeist is in the 12th grade, Amityville Horror's in the 7th grade.
okay, okay, all right. Um, I think these movies were based on the Amityville Horror or one like there's a series. So I though I have 10 movies, I was like, I can't pick from this sort of grouping, and that's Insidious.
Ooh.
It's on my list because it was hard to watch. As a person that astral projects, was my number one fear on in movie form was Insidious. And so I like, and then after that there's a series of movies that like tie together everything like Annabelle and
Mhm.
even The Nun is on there too. So I was like, the whole Insidious lineup is on this list because they get so close to reality that for me it was always I always kind of had arm's length approach to them just because I didn't want to create anything for myself with my vivid imagination and you know who wants to like see something off in the distance skittering around the room and then you're like, oh, what the fuck. And now like really truly seeing, I just didn't want to
Mhm.
open up that aspect of my imagination to horrible things. But then later on, I don't know what shifted for me, but I was able to make it through. And I was like, yep, just as fucked up as I thought. So, you know, I'm okay. But yes, the Insidious series
Okay.
is on my list.
The next one, spoiler alert, will be on my list for next week too,
Mm.
because it's both a movie from a long time ago and then was made into a little mini series. And that
Oh.
is The Haunting of Hill House, which
Oh,
is
I love that one.
yeah,
Oh,
it's a
both
story
series
written
are
by the amazing, incredibly spooky as hell Shirley Jackson. And it is just an amazing story of the haunting of a family. And I can't say enough good things about it. I'm not going to say a whole lot this time because I'll get into it more next time, but love The Haunting of Hill House.
I mean, it's hard not to talk about. I like when I
Go ahead.
found well, when I found the movie and then the series a couple years later, I don't know what it was, but it just was so captivating, the movie. And then the series, they did it so well to allow you into the characters' lives and to um see things happening from different angles. It was amazing. And those actors have gone on to be some of my favorites in additional horror shows that are out now. So I'll leave it there. But The Haunting of Hill, oh man, I love that movie so much. Right
Yeah.
on. It's not on my list though. How
Uh-oh.
funny, how funny. Um, okay, sorry, I have to rein that in. That movie, I really get excited about that movie.
So one thing about The Haunting of Hill House, when we talk about it next week, something you'll hear me mention a lot is a guy named Mike Flanagan. And he is the one who was the force behind the Haunting of Hill House series. And there are a couple of other of my favorite series that he does as well. So yeah, I really like Mike Flanagan, and he's just a very creative kind of guy.
Very cool. On my list, this one, so we both did some Googling because I was like, I'm pretty
Yep.
sure I watched scary movies and then just forgot about them. So, and one of the ones that I forgot about was The Wretched.
Ooh.
So that was a witch movie. I enjoyed it. I wish they had developed the characters a bit more. It was a very fast, scary movie, and I don't like fast movies. Like I want to get to know you. I want to feel something for you
Let me
before you
care that you're having drama.
die. Right. And so that The Wretched was a movie about what I can only describe as a witch's spirit. Um, getting inside of a woman and taking over her life and eating her children, or at least attempting to. They get the last one out, I think. Sorry, spoiler. um, but it was an interesting movie about possession and what it does to a person's body and her ability to kind of. It broke some of the typical possession movie rules, which is what made it interesting. Um, and you're kept guessing about halfway through the movie, which I think for me as a person who like analyzes and I'm like, oh, this is where the movie's going, blah blah blah, and so now I'm just watching more to see how much I got right and how much I got wrong in most cases, especially if it's a scary movie. I have to unravel it very quickly because that's my piece.
Yeah.
So this one, it kept me guessing for until about halfway through, and so I appreciated being held on to for that long. So
That's another thing for me. If it keeps my attention without me zoning out and getting bored with all of the sudden the shock terror of it, then it's a good movie.
yeah.
So my next one on the list kind of bridges between those two. And I like it. A lot of people don't. And the author is one of the people who absolutely hates it. And that is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I love that movie. And Stephen King effing hates that movie. And
Really?
he remade it later with the guy from Wings, and it was just unwatchable. So
Oh,
I have to kind of push his opinion of the movie aside. I thought it was terrifying, and I thought there were so many iconic scenes in that movie that just were really scary for me. And so I've always kind of wanted to go to the Stanley Hotel where it was filmed
yeah.
and check it out. But yeah, so my next one is The Shining by Stephen King. Now,
Debs.
honorable mention, this is not on my list. And I really wanted it to be on my list, but I couldn't because of kind of one of my criteria, and that's Doctor Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. And
Oh,
Stephen King did write it. The people who make the movie are very they're respectful of the original Kubrick movie. And so Dr. Sleep is about Danny, the little boy from the movie after he grows up. And I thought it was wonderful. But the antagonist in this, the hotel is still a thing. It's still a very big part of what happens. But the real antagonist is more vampiric in nature and is a supernatural person. So I had to kind of exclude it for that part of the criteria. But yeah, props to Dr. Sleep.
Interesting. I didn't even know there was a sequel, so thank you for
Gotta
that.
gotta watch it. It's good.
Yeah. Oh, Bram has seen it. Um, Next up on my list. And I'm trying to like cross these out so I don't repeat. Uh don't hate me for this because she's kind of
Uh-oh.
in the hot seat right now, I think, with most people. Demon Knights, with Jada Pinkett Smith.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Okay, so this was a movie. I don't even, as many times I've seen this movie a couple of times, and I don't know how it starts. Like I'm sitting here trying to remember, like, wait a minute, where did it begin? But basically, the premise of the movie is uh, Jada Pinkett Smith and a handful of other characters end up in this situation where they're fighting a demon, and the only thing that's going to save them is Christ's blood. And by the end of it all, they have this relic filled with Christ's blood, and she ends up like drenching herself in it and burning the demon and da 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 da. And for me, what made it scary was it probably the level of darkness which it was shot in and the time of my life when I saw it. Because I was watching it with my mom, and she had to sleep with the lights on for like 2 weeks, and as an adult. And for me, I was kind of I was concerned about how evil could walk around and just manipulate things, and then what do you do? And I was trying to figure it out. And then by the end of it all, like in this relic, you find out that they just keep refilling it. And because it has like a splash of Christ in it, it's all Christ's blood. It doesn't matter that, Johnny from 1922 also put his blood in there too. And so the relic goes on to be powerful and all of these things. And it was an interesting movie. It's kitschy. So Demon Knights was on my list.
Exciting. So my next one is kind of dear to my heart, just geographically speaking. And I mentioned this last time's broadcast, but the movie is called American Haunting, and it is a movie about the Bell Witch, which is actually, there's a big question as to whether the Bell Witch, which is a legend in the area I'm from, is a haunting or it's a curse or it's both. And the Bell Witch story happened in Tennessee, and it has Donald Sutherland and Sissy Spacek in it, and they put a different twist to the story. And what's interesting is inadvertently, because I'm sure they were not thinking about me specifically when they made this movie. They may have been, but probably not. Their twist that they put on the movie completely played into my theory about poltergeist.
Interesting.
And so I got to give props to American Haunting. I liked it very much.
Can we get a little more insight into that piece that you're talking about?
If I tell you, it will completely spoil the ending of the movie.
Okay. So yeah. Go watch
American Haunting.
I'm writing some of these down.
Me too. I've got little notes all over my paper.
Okay, so the next one I'll bring up is The Nun. Like I said, literally finished 45 minutes before the show, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought I was not going to, just based on well, I don't know what based on, probably just the movie cover did not look inviting to me personally. But I appreciated, I think it's because of the same premise as the Pope's Exorcist. So you have sacred ground that's been corrupted. And what does it look like to bring that through? Like how does evil materialize from something like that? So I really appreciated The Nun for that. And it was jump scary and yet informative. But like I said, I listened to probably three-quarters of the movie on mute. So no jump scares for me. My adrenaline's fully in check, and it was a good movie. I'm actually excited to see The Nun 2 because that's
Oh,
already out.
very nice.
The Nun is an old, I think it was 2014 movie. It does have the actress in it, the protagonist in it, both in this one and the second one, is one of my favorites from American Horror Story, which, spoiler alert, for me next week, that'll be on my list
Okay.
as far as TV shows go. So, The Nun.
The
So,
Nun. So my next one is one of the ones in my list that is kind of is offbeat from the rest of them, but it is one that really stuck in my mind based on how old it is. You'll know that I originally saw this at when I was a younger person, and it absolutely stuck with me in one of those ways that I would lay awake at night sometimes and think about this movie and remember things about the movie and have to go back and watch the movie again to check and make sure I really saw that versus it just came into my head. And that's
right.
Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, I didn't see that one
And
either.
that it is Mia Farrow. And I thought that was just it. The whole buildup was just creepy. And then you have the big reveals and such at the end. I've always been kind of partial to haunted baby movies. Another one that I actually saw when I was pregnant with Joe was It Lives, which was a slasher movie where the baby kills the milkman and all this other stuff. It was a very wild movie, but not on this list because it was a slasher movie and it wasn't that great of a movie. But Rosemary's Baby was particularly spooky. And it's about a woman who moves into a house with her husband, and her husband, he's kind of off-putting anyway, so you kind of don't like the husband to start with. His name was Guy, and that's my dad's name. But he it turns out is involved with some Satanists, and it's a whole thing of we need to, Satan needs to get him a woman pregnant kind of thing. So it's really an intense movie and highly recommend. And it's psychological horror for most of it, where you're just having that tweaky feeling that something is just so completely not right here. And so you're kind of watching it going, is Rosemary crazy? Or is there really something going on here? And then at the end, you're like, oh, Rosemary was doing all right. She had it down.
Plenty sane.
Yep.
Okay, so at first when you started talking about it, I was like, "Oh, okay, I should see that one too." And then you said "Haunted Baby," and I was like, that's
Oh! As far as the haunted baby, that's the last 20 seconds of the movie.
okay."
Okay, you don't even get there.
So that's that.
Yeah, spoilers. Stop it.
Oh, I won't put it up. um, so that's a line that a subconscious line that I have. Like, what was that movie where you would see it was kind of shot from like security cameras or like the baby monitor, and you'd see like the ghost pick up the baby or something like that. And I can't even remember the title because
That's
I
not
refuse to
movie.
watch that movie anytime it involves kids. I'm like, nope, that's my line. But I have to check out Rosemary's Baby since it's not as intense.
It was like late 60s, early 70s. I don't know the exact date, but it's an older movie, but it was really intense.
Okay. So I have Candyman on here, the
Check you
2021
out.
version.
You know what? I've never seen that movie. Every single one of my kids have seen it. I've never seen that movie.
I don't I'm not I don't think I've seen the first Candyman. I knew the story and that was enough. So going and seeing the newest one in theaters was interesting because I don't typically like going to see scary movies in theaters. I can't mute it. I can't walk away because I paid for it, all of those things. And so this one, I actually enjoyed it not for the fear piece, but for the historical elements.
Hmm.
Jordan Jordan Peele, I think. I forget the director's name, but he's done a lot. He did like movies like Us and other scary movies. He paid homage to so many Black historical things towards the end of the movie, and like wraps everything up in a really beautiful package that doesn't just make it a scary movie. It makes it a think movie. And so I really, really appreciated the newest Candyman. I think everybody should see it because it ties in the lore with real history. And I did not expect that. I was pleasantly surprised. So that's one for me.
So I'm trying to remember the other person that was in a movie. Give me just a second.
Oh, sure.
Oh, it's not going to let me. I'll have to check it later. Anyway. Oh, yes, there it is. Okay, so Deb's got ahead of me. My next one is The Sentinel, which is a very scary book and a very scary movie. I read the book before I did the movie, and it is about I got to think of the best way to describe this without doing the total spoiler, saying a woman moves into a boarding house, a really sort of gothic-y boarding house, and over time you find out that there is an entity, or a sentinel as it's called, that protects the house. And it's really creepy. It's a very scary movie, and the end is very, for our way of storytelling in the Western world, the ending is unexpected.
Ooh.
And
Okay.
I enjoyed it very much. And it was because I read the book that I knew I could watch the movie and not dislike it if they did it right. If they stuck to the book, it was going to be a really great movie, and they did.
Oh, very cool.
So
And that doesn't happen often.
Yeah, agreed. The Sentinel.
On the list. Next up, I have a classic, The Ring.
Oh, that is a good one.
Yep.
Thank
That
God
one.
we don't have VHS anymore, right?
Right. I mean, to say that I was afraid to watch something mysterious doesn't even really cut it. I mean, I was done. I think most Asian myths are scary in and of themselves when you hear about them, and then they went on to make a movie that expounded upon one. And it was a hard watch. And I was at the age where I did not have control of the remote. So if we were watching it, and it was a lot of this and don't turn off the light. It was intense.
Yeah.
And then that sound she made, I couldn't for weeks. So
That was
that's
definitely a scary one. So the next one I have is one that, okay, so when I watch a movie, I am not clever. There are some people that can watch a movie, and Eric's one of them, that within the first 10 minutes of the movie, they know exactly what's going on. I'm not that person. I'm along for the ride. I trust nothing, least of all myself, in unraveling a movie. And this one I didn't get. And so the ending was a total shock for me, and just a pleasant, it was interesting to have, oh my God, that kind of shock to it. And that's The Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis.
You went for an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yep, I had no clue what the upshot of the movie was, and it just totally got me. And Eric's like, well, I knew that was going to happen. I figured that out, right in the, and I'm nope, oblivious. And I loved The Sixth Sense so much. I thought that was such a scary movie, but it was scary in the way of tell me a story rather than I want you to shock me. I want you to gross me out with gore. It was tell me a really spooky story. And okay, I know. Everybody knew it. Everybody in the world fucking knew it. I didn't know it. But I loved The Sixth Sense, and I thought it was an amazing, amazing story.
So just to side with you here, I didn't realize either. I wasn't sure what to expect, and the outcome of what they were dealing with was complete surprise. It didn't come across that way, and I have to say, M. Night Shyamalan, it's like for me and his movies, it is hit or miss entirely. I know it's not going to be what I think it's going to be, and then the outcome is going to be either like, wow, who would have ever thought, and or really, and there's no in between. I can't think of
That's true.
one movie that is in between.
That's true.
Um, the movie I referenced earlier, I happened to scroll through a list and see it here. Was with the children
Hmm.
being part of the ghost activity was Paranormal Activity.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I completely refuse to see that movie. Absolutely will not. So I don't know. So this was classified as horror. But I found it psychologically fascinating because I love multiple personality disorder, anything. And that is the movie Split.
Oh, I haven't
Um,
seen that.
oh, you would love it. Because
Good.
for the psychological elements. So, did you ever read the book When Rabbit Howls?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's about a woman who has, I think, if I remember it, I may be misremembering, it's like 83 different personalities.
Wow.
Um,
Overachiever.
right. And some of them know about each other, some of them don't. And so Split takes that on. And by the end of it, there are some horror elements. And it gets pretty intense. And it plays into another movie with Bruce Willis, Unbreakable.
Yeah, I do know that one.
There was a sequel to Unbreakable where it incorporates. Anyway, I want to spoil everything. But Split was on the list, and I like it because of the reality, the real possibility of um, the movie, and then I like it because of. I mean, it wasn't too terrifying. I guess I don't know why it's on my list, but it's there because I liked it.
So my 10th movie, and after I do my 10th movie, I'm going to do some honorable mentions that I wanted to include, but for different reasons had to strike out, and I'll do that after your 10th. But my 10th movie, I had to really struggle with whether or not to put it on there because it was not an amazing movie, but it was a tremendously interesting movie, and that is The Entity with Barbara Hershey. And that's another one where I read the book before I saw the movie. It's a possession movie, and it's very much this is an ordinary person that an
Mm.
entity possesses. It's not, oh, this is referencing back to when she was violated as a child, or this, it's just nope, this is just a normal lady, and she's possessed,
Mm.
or becomes possessed as part of or possessed and haunted, I would say, because she's also several times attacked by the entity. And it's
Interesting.
just a fascinating movie. I enjoyed it very much.
Okay. Tell me the title of that one again.
The Entity.
The
Barbara
Entity.
Hershey is the actress.
Boy, I'm going to be watching movies for like the next, because I don't really watch movies or TV like that unless something really captivates me. Which plays to my next movie. I love vampires. Not energy vampires, but just regular ones, the ones that deal with blood. Um, and so The Invitation is on my
Ooh,
list.
very
It was
cool.
cute. I appreciated the multicultural nature of the film because the lead actress was black. I don't think you see that very often in vampire things. Like there's a new interview with the vampire series where you
Mhm.
have a lead black actor as part of the main cast, and so I appreciated that piece, and it kind of kept me going. The only well, if I say that, it'll ruin it. So go and watch it. I have one feminist issue with the movie. Um, but you guys will see it if you go see it. But the invitation was on there simply to pay respects to my love of vampire films.
So because of my fantastical creatures disqualification, I had to keep shooting down vampire movies, and I decided that for my Substack, where I do my blogging, that I have to do a list of my top 10 vampire movies.
Okay.
And so over there, when I'm doing my writing, I'm going to have 10 vampire movies that I liked or appreciated or loved. And so, first of all, I've done my 10 that I loved. I had some, and there's a few here that I really wanted to include, but for different reasons had to kind of not include. So I'm just going to give those for honorable mention.
Okay.
The first time I saw Nightmare on Elm Street, it scared me so much. I thought that was such a terrifying and unique twist on horror movies for that time. And the idea that something could get you while you were sleeping was absolutely genius. And so I couldn't, it really is at its heart a shocker and a slasher. And so I couldn't include it. But kudos to Nightmare on Elm Street. I would not watch it again. But it was one that really, really, huh?
Even now?
Nope. Nope. None of them. But it was one that really scared me. Another one that I have to give honorable mention to, I mentioned The Changeling, and that's George C. Scott and Trish Van Devere. And that is a really spooky haunted house movie. And there's a couple of things along the way, the reveals that are really kind of, I don't want to say gut twisting, but they kind of get you. It was just a really heartfelt twist on some of these. And it's really corny because there's an old wooden wheelchair that kind of chases him around the house, which is really stupid. But that's, there was just so many dumb elements. It doesn't hold up well as far as time thematically, but it's just interesting. And the story, there's a couple of scenes in it that are just really scary. And so I got to give some good points to The Changeling. Another one that really made me extremely uncomfortable was a movie called Stir of Echoes with Kevin Bacon. And it's almost a psychological thriller. And because of that, I kind of pushed it aside. But Stir of Echoes, Kevin Bacon, really good. There's a movie, I cannot remember who was in it, but it was called Identity. And it was a movie about people who have been basically drawn together by fate, so to speak, at this hotel, and they start dying off. And the end, again, just like Sixth Sense, was a complete shock to me. And so it's more criminal slash, you don't get the idea it's something supernatural killing them, but it's a very scary movie. And to that end as well is a movie called And Then There Were None, which is an Agatha Christie story based on, I think it was called 10 Little Indians. But it's one of those that they're in a mansion and people are getting killed off and it's a whodunit. But yeah, Identity was the name of the movie. I saw when I was going through the top 100 scary movies that people kept putting What We Do in the Shadows on it. And that
really? Why? I can't even imagine.
I know. So that surprised me. I wanted to mention that. Another movie that I found to be very scary that I had to leave off because of my fantastical creatures moratorium is the movie Devil's Advocate. And that is, of course, Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves. And Charlize Theron has a part in it as well. But Devil's Advocate to me was, I would see Satan as a fantastical creature. And it was a really scary movie. And so I had to kind of leave that one off because of that reason. Two more. I watch a lot of movies. Constantine, I loved.
Oh, love. Absolutely.
Love Constantine, but I wouldn't necessarily count it as a horror movie. It's more of an
Okay.
action movie, but I love, love, love Constantine. I could watch it over and over.
Again and
And
again.
the last one, and of course, when I thought of Devil's Advocate, I immediately thought of Constantine. So the last one that I would add for honorable mention is not a horribly scary movie, but it's an amazing movie. And that's a movie most people have never heard of called House of the Long Shadows.
Yeah.
And House of the Long Shadows starred Desi Arnaz Jr.
Oh.
And it had, I want to make sure I get everybody. These are the people in the cast of House of the Long Shadows: Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and John Carradine. And so anybody who has, good knowledge of classic horror films knows that that is the absolute royalty of old scary movies. And it was just an interesting, wonderful movie. And it's kind of almost Rocky Horror Picture Show of this
Oh.
couple. And what's his name? Desi Arnaz Jr. is the guy of the couple. The car breaks down. They have to go to this house. And in this house are all these scary guys. And things start to happen in the house. And it was just really, really good. So those are my honorable mentions for the movies.
That was a great honorable mention list. And the fact that Vincent Price was in House of the Long Shadows, now I'm going to have to go and watch it.
Yeah. And he's
He was one of my
wonderful in it too.
favorites. Yeah. As a
Yeah.
kid, he was one of my favorites. I don't have as many honorable mentions. Like I was just trying to, so one of the things that I was looking over here doing was going through one of the lists that had come up about scary movies. And I was trying to remember the one with David Bautista, and it is Knock at the Cabin.
Wow.
It was, I think it didn't come up on my scary list radar because I guess it would be considered a thriller. But it was very M. Night Shyamalan-esque. In fact, I don't think he did that one. But you really, even by the end of the movie, you're kind of like, what did I just watch?
Hmm.
But it was scary in the things that it alluded to. And so I really enjoyed it. And then you reminded me, so whenever I hear the name Kevin Bacon, I kind of just write off the movie. I don't know. I know. I don't know what my resistance to Kevin Bacon actually is. Like maybe we have 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, like a past
You must
life.
have multiple degrees of Kevin Bacon.
um, but I can't watch him for extended periods of time. There was a movie he did with Ryan Reynolds that was funny. It was about it was like Ghost Police something, and it was cute. And Ryan Reynolds is fun to watch. But I was over Kevin Bacon within the first 5 minutes. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry, Kevin. If I ever meet you, I'm sure you're a nice
Wow.
person. But he was in The Invisible Man, and that was scary for me at the time that I watched it. I think I was just like, I was horrified that something invisible could torture you in that way. And he was particularly aggressive in terms of like an invisible force attacking you. And then when they redid The Invisible Man, they well, if I tell you that, it'll give it away. They took a different spin on it of what made him the Invisible Man. It was not Kevin Bacon based. So it's thoroughly enjoyable movie. The storyline of The Invisible Man is fun anyway, so that would be on my honorable mention list. I don't really have any others. I know there are more movies that I've seen as I roll through this list. So R.I.P.D. That was the one with Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Bacon. I mean, if you have a couple hours to throw away, go watch the movie. But
There
other
was
than what did you say?
there was a movie frequently mentioned on the list that I have not seen called Cabin in the Woods. And people seem to really like that movie, but I never saw it. So can't speak.
Um, isn't that the one where they rent the cabin and weird things start happening? I don't know. I don't think I've seen that one either. And because again, if I go and rent a cabin, I don't want to think about that movie
Yeah.
while I'm there. So that's enough for me. This has been such a fun experience. I don't I don't ever think that I'm not going to have a fun time, but I will say with you, Katrina, but I will say I wasn't sure how talking about movies would go. I mean, um, movies are not a big part of my life because I'm like, what time do I make for that? But this was exciting, and now I can kind of binge and veg a little bit over the holidays and over the coming weeks. I'm excited. This was a lot of
I
fun.
I just think that it's so important that we do make time for escapism. And
Yeah.
to me, it's possibly the part of being a writer, the whole idea of tell me a story is something very primal, and it's very nurturing to me. And so that's one reason I love audiobooks. Is it
Yeah.
really goes back to the idea of my mother telling me stories, my dad telling me stories. And so I like to actually put into my week times that I'm just going to escape and hear someone else's story and see what stories are trying to oh, I got that. That's on next Deb's. That's on next week's, because that was actually a TV show, and it's Trilogy of Terror with Karen Black.
Oh,
And that'll be in next week. And that was a very scary movie, or TV, made for TV movie. So yeah, I think it's important that we have escapisms. I do think it's important that we use horror in a way to confront certain fears that we have on a safe and relatable platform. And I think that I think it does help us purge something, because if we don't ever feel those feelings, we,
mm,
don't always know how to manage them.
absolutely.
And life can be super scary. And so having practice runs at being able to manage those feelings can be valuable.
I hadn't thought about looking at it that way. I will say, one of the things that I'm grateful for in terms of my partner is that he enjoys movies, and so it is an opportunity to spend quality time with him, and so I get that moment, and he enjoys the scary ones. So and my favorite little human in the world, she's not really that little, but between the two of them watching movies and watching horror films, it's like you said, it's an opportunity. And then I'm with people that I love, so I just ask that they not touch me when scary things happen, because I don't know what arm or what leg might move in response, and I don't want to hurt anybody.
Mm.
But those moments, like you said, they are really important, and I'm glad to take this list and be like, all right, guys, what are we going to do
So
to create this every time?
if we want to go very briefly into some ideas, like you were talking about with the Kevin Bacon movie, where we're talking about not scary movies. Two that I recommend. One is called Hearts and Souls, and it's got Robert Downey Jr. in it.
Oh,
And it's about a guy and his four spirit guides. And that's a great movie. And also Michael J. Fox, The Frighteners, is a lot of fun. And that's a movie about a guy who's basically a Ghostbuster, but he's in league with the ghosts. They are his friends. And so the ghosts will go in and haunt a place, and then somebody calls him to come clear him out. And he makes a big production of clearing out his friends, and they cash in the money. It's really a lot of fun.
oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Added to the list.
All right.
All right, friends. I almost, I'm so glad that you did your honorable mentions, because I was like, we're probably going to need a part 2 of the movies. There's just so many movies, but I don't think that we do. I think we're on to TV shows next, and there are some really great oldies but goodies and contemporary shows. So, I didn't think that was a scary one. Deb, what dreams may come?
Definitely has some uncomfortable scenes
Yeah,
in it.
for
For
sure.
Annabelle Gish.
But now that we've created all of this, you guys were excellent in sharing yours. Let's hear from you on those TV shows next Thursday. And for now, at this power hour, we will catch you next time on Crossroads of Cognizance. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.